It Started at Surrey, Stag Radios podcast, where Surrey alumni return to campus for an evening of reading and networking to share where their journey began and where they are now. I'm your host, Sofia Varela, and today I'm joined with...
Thomas Sinkinson.
You've got your book.
I've got my book. I've got The Man Who Hired a Wizard.
Lovely.
This is not the version that you get if you order it online, but this is The Man Who Hired a Wizard, yeah.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure thing. So, I'm going to take off the hat. I feel like you got it, right? You understood.
We love it.
So, The Man Who Hired a Wizard is about a 3-foot-tall wizard called Garwin who investigates a sinister corporate threat in an office in Dorset. It's a critique of corporate culture. It's a critique of many things in the office world, but most of all, it's a comedy about wizards. And that's the book.
You've kind of got a blend of fantasy and like modern themes in there. So let's just start at Surrey. What course did you do, and how do you think it kind of affected your writing process?
Sure thing. So I did English literature and creative writing. We did this back in 2019 through to 2022. 2021, I can't remember when I graduated, but it was around then. So it was deep in COVID time, and one of my favourite courses, one of the favourite modules I did was the medieval literature one. I don't know if you've done that one, yeah? Incredible. I loved it. And one of my favourite stories that we read through and the text that we looked through the most was Gawain and the Green Knight. Have you heard this one, yeah? I love it. It's so good. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful tale, but I think it's also very funny. And I wrote about it for my dissertation. I did, my dissertation about Gawain and the Green Knight. However, Dr. Amy Morgan may call me out for this. I misspelt Gawain about 3 times throughout the dissertation.
Classic.
And Gawain was spelt Garwin, Gawin. Which is the name of my wizard in this book.
So, that's cute.
But in terms of like inspiration and stuff, yeah, medieval literature was a huge thing for me. That sort of traditional epic story that, sort of bridged the gap between religious themes and those sort of modern themes for the time. And then also, courses that we did on comedy, some even Shakespeare ideas are in there for sure. And yeah, I wrote this book a couple of years after I was at Surrey. But the ideas and the sort of, the ideas for coming up with something comedic that tied into what I was doing at the current time of my life was rooted in there from the start. Yeah.
And I love that you misspelled it.
I misspelled it,
classic English
and I didn't realise until like a year afterwards. And I was like, why did I get marked down for this?
So you mentioned that you wrote this after Surrey. What were kind of skills that Surrey kind of gave you, and how did they kind of like help in the process of writing this book?
Sure, for sure. On the creative writing side, I think the first thing is going slow. And that's an incredibly basic concept that anyone can teach you, but when you're doing the classes at Surrey, when you're going through the writing practices and the classes, one of the key things that I learn, and this is something I've taken forward into many avenues of my life, not just the book, but just going slow, taking your time, thinking through things a lot more carefully and planning and prep. And actually some of the more academic side of things came into the fold when I was sort of drafting my first draft. And, doing a lot of research around books within this domain, books that have been published in the recent, sort of years and months that were comedic books or whatever. Skills in research, skills in pacing, I guess, as well would be a key one. And then also, one of the things that we did in classes, I'm sure you've experienced this in yours, is sharing your work, reading out to other people, coming up with ideas together, having those sort of mini focus groups, is that a word? Yeah, that's a word. English student. Pitching ideas to each other, working on ideas. And I did that a lot when I was writing this with my friends and fellow alumni from uni. Sorry, shout out Altai, shout out Louis, gang. I guess those are the three main ones.
Yeah, you kind of spoke about having your community of like your friends and stuff, and they would like workshop things to you and stuff. How did that kind of impact your writing?
Oh, which tremendously impacted things. Big shout out to Alice as well. She was basically the editor for this book, and one of the key things that I found myself doing in the writing was defending myself. I found myself coming up with a chapter or a joke or a funny bit or whatever, and then realising it's not funny, but then being quite defensive of it. I was quite protective of it because, it's my work, it's my world, it's my little wizard, And then I realised that, well, why am I defending it? What is actually the cause? And it was mostly insecurity. It was mostly, coming to terms with the fact that I, am proud of something, but perhaps it's not as good as it could be. And so when those conversations happened and those focus groups that we talked about, that really unlocked everything in terms of me, dissolving the ego, dropping the facade of having to defend something, and just taking on criticism as it was, and expanding on ideas as well. So
to kind of focus back on the book, what was like your main idea? Like, how did you come up with the concept for writing your book?
Sure. So I'm going to speak about this in my talk later on, so if there's a recording of that, check it out. But I committed a cardinal sin when I left university. This is the greatest evil that man could commit in the modern world. That's not true. I don't want to say that. It's a bad thing to do. But I joined the corporate world. I joined a corporate office and worked in a corporate job for, I still currently do it. Maybe I'm still doing it. But anyway, I joined a really corporate world in Bristol straight out of uni. And in one day, in one meeting, the phrase circle back, let's circle back to this, we'll piggyback off this, all these phrases, was said 15 times in an hour. And I found myself vomiting in the back of my throat so many times throughout this meeting. And I realized what it really was is that I was getting sick of the language being used in these meetings not having any meaning. Every time we say circle back, every time we say, let's get a bird's eye view on this, all these corporate phrases, what I realized is that there's no passion, there's no sense of beauty in the language that we're using. We're just using phrases to progress the conversation forward or whatever. And I found that so sad. I found that so painful to realize. And so I had the idea, mostly what the book's about is the little wizard takes down corporate phrases. He's trying to expunge corporate phrases. And what you realize as you read, spoiler alert, is that the phrases that people say in the office are actually dark, evil magic. And anytime anyone says circle back, they're accidentally casting a firebolt, 3 miles away or whatever. And so it was really that was the key moment of realization that I have to critique this. I have to make fun of this, and also say something about how, we want to get back to language that matters, language that builds connections rather than just meaningless phrases. So, yeah.
How do you think the corporate world kind of like hinders creativity in that way? You're talking about how it hinders language. How do you think it just, kind of puts this like dark cloud over everything?
Good question. I guess it's a sense of eradicating individuality. It's removing the sense of individual in, when you're working in an office, you have 30, 40, 50 people in one room on the phones or in, on computers and stuff. And the perfect situation for the higher ups is to have everybody being the same.
Yeah.
By the way, this isn't all corporate offices, this isn't everything. I have an amazing job now, I'm really happy with it. I work in marketing. It's a bit different maybe in marketing. Definitely it's different. But my first job, it was definitely not. So yeah, that sort of sense of uniform culture across everyone. Everyone has to be doing this, everyone has to be doing that. And what you find yourself doing, I found myself doing, is that I would come into the office every day and I'd zone out. I'd disassociate from the work, because it was just get through to 5 p.m, get through, to 4 p.m, whatever time you finish. And that removes creativity. That removes a chance for thinking and feeling and being present and understanding. It is something that is so different after having uni, so many beautiful courses and discussions with people, and having those conversations like at Stag Radio where we are right now.
Little promo.
Shout out Stag. So I think that's the key thing, removing individuality, and if you're able to break away from that, beautiful things will happen. That's my advice, I guess.
When did things for you, was there like one moment where you felt like, oh my god, this is what I'm going to write about, how am I going to write about this? The kind of moment where you started feeling like a writer in a way.
Sure. Never. Kind of, in a way, never. I'm writing the second book now. I'm writing the sequel to this one, and I'm hating it. I hate the book. But that's again, that sort of sense of wanting to be a perfectionist, wanting to get it right, want to get it perfect. And it was, the first book, at least there was a bit more of a vision going into it, a full plan and stuff, and I guess that helps. But the first point I sort of really felt like being a writer probably would have been when I got the first draft done. I had a horrible first draft. It was awful. It was spelling mistakes. Garwin was spelled correctly. All those sorts of things. But what I had there was a piece of work, a completed product, if I use the corporate speak again. And what I realized at that point, it was that, like, wow, okay, there is a chunk of time sunk into this. And actually throughout the thing I should have been thinking, oh wow, I'm a writer and all this stuff, but it's not until I felt like I had a packaged up product that it really clicked for me. But that's where the journey began, really. That's where the actual writing began for me. It was going back through and reworking sections and figuring out, things that didn't make sense or plot holes or anything like that. That felt a lot more focused energy rather than just writing it out. So I guess that's the point I really felt it.
How did you feel that you kind of transitioned from a student to a writer? Was it like gradual? Was it like straight away we're getting into this?
Sure. Well, so I kind of avoided writing for, I guess it was 2-3 years after graduating. I didn't really pick up a pen. I didn't really, open up a Word doc outside of work. Mostly out of fear, mostly out of, wanting to fit into these offices, wanting to fit into corporate culture, but also, time is limited, but also, the fear thing is interesting. I don't know why I just said that. I want to think that through. I think it is a fear because I had a vision for what I wanted to produce at uni. I wanted to do this sort of academic piece, more so about Gawain and some themes like Chaos Camp and other things within the medieval literature space. But that fear of almost failure, that fear of not wanting to do it in the sense that I could do it badly, really stopped me for a while. And then I guess, late last year, those ideas started kicking together of that corporate language and that sort of stuff. So that was the push, a good idea. That was the real push into doing it. But it took a couple of years after uni.
And you spoke about how you kind of, touch on the corporate themes of this book. What was like the key themes apart from the corporate thing that you wanted to touch on, or if there are any?
Sure. So I guess, anti-capitalism is the key. But also, I mean, one of the other sort of plot lines within the book is about a middle manager, a sort of corporate, I was going to use the word slob there, but that sounds so offensive. A corporate drone?
Yeah, we'll say that.
Corporate drone who has recently lost his father. And he is grieving through not grieving. He is just a mess. And so the other angle of it is grief and exploring grief through some of the characters within that. And coming back to that language theme again, that using these phrases as a distraction from the real language we should be using, the languages of love, the languages of passion and stuff. So grief, corporatism, I think would be the sort of two key themes. I mean, it's not a very good book also, I should say. No, it's good. Buy it now.
Go buy it. Come on. We'll put a link down in the below description. So how do you think those two key themes kind of impacted you in your life, and how did you translate it into the page?
Sure. I mean, I was a corporate drone. I was straight out of uni. I found myself being moulded and shaped into, being we'll circle back to this later. This sort of words. And I got quite sick of it. And when I moved into a marketing job, I was more creatively free. I was more creatively fulfilled, at least. And so I started distancing myself from that language anyway. There wasn't the need for it, especially in the job I have now. There's absolutely no need for any of that. It's very casual. But that distance created the desire to critique, the desire to reflect back on what I had. And so, 100% that corporate language was definitely me doing that. Another thing within there is that the wizard is, as I said, he's a 3-foot tall guy. He is a hermit. He is a complete outsider to the modern world. And he lives in this, woodland at the top of a hill, and he's an outsider. That's me. Right? I grew up in a tiny village in the middle of the New Forest, and my world growing up was very isolated. It was very, there wasn't any bus links, there wasn't any, places like this, and so, that wizard trying to adjust to modern life, that wizard trying to, fit in and understand language and understand, modern ideas. He struggled with that. That's me. That's when I came to Surrey. I was a weird little kid. I was a guy that didn't really understand, some of the trends and stuff going on. I wasn't as online and stuff. So there's that, which was a key. I mean, it's basically just a self-insert, a self-insert, which is apparently a crime, but I think it should. So.
One of the biggest crimes, right? So would you say that was one of the biggest challenges for you writing this book, was trying to insert yourself in the character, but also try and make it relatable to other people?
Interesting. Yes. So, so there's sort of two threads there. So the first one, I didn't realise I was self-inserting. I didn't realise I was doing that until... So I recorded everything. I documented me doing it. I think I'll put that video out sometime. But, I've got all this hours of footage, and on whatever day it was, month it was, I broke down in tears. I started bawling my eyes out talking about Garwin and talking about that, as I realised, as I came to terms with the idea that, this was me. I'm just describing myself here. And I realised how lonely he was and how distant he was from modern life and stuff. And I realised that that's like, kind of therapeutic. It's kind of beautiful in a way to process that through a character. And so that really helped. That's the other difficulty, right, with corporate language, is that not everyone's in corporate world.
Yeah.
Not everyone's, involved in that space. And, some of my friends and some of my, fellow alumni that graduated haven't gone into that direction. They've done other things. And so that pain that I felt of hearing that language so regularly and experiencing that, it's quite tough to pitch that to someone that doesn't even know that was being used at the time. And my granddad read the book the other day, and he's 88, and he had no clue what was going on. So there is like something to be said about specializing and honing in on that niche, because I think that through my experience of having lived that, I was able to translate that better onto page. There are certain things that I have dumbed down a bit, and there's certain things that I'm going into in the second book that's a bit more sort of detailed critique, because I feel like perhaps I've presented it slightly surface level in this one. But yeah, I think the other thing with that is that Garwin is a wizard from the woods who doesn't understand this world, which is exactly how I felt going into that world. And so I'm channeling my experience and understanding of this world through the book. And so hopefully that is relatable to people as they come into it, but also that they can see further. So yeah.
Do you think life post-grad is really lonely? Or do you, how would you describe life post-grad?
How would I describe life post-grad? What a question. You're my therapist. It's terrible. No. It's good. It's what you make of it, right?
Yeah.
So when I left, I managed to secure the first job I had out of uni whilst I was at uni. It was within the last sort of 3 months or so, and that gave me a lot of comfort. Obviously, that gave me a lot of cool, we've got the security of the job and all this stuff. But it took a while to actually feel good about it, because I chose the wrong direction. I went into this office salesy job that wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't creatively fulfilling, and through trial and error and through many errors and a lot of trials, eventually carved out a place in the world which I feel comfortable in. And that takes time. That takes going through the journey itself to get there. So I say it is good. I say postgrad life is good, and it doesn't necessarily have to be lonely if you strive for it not to be. That was deep. That was good.
So what is a piece of advice that you would give your younger self here at Surrey, or even your fresher self? What is something that you would say?
Yes. What would I say? I'd say, if you don't know, go slow. If you don't know what's happening in front of you, take it one step at a time. I've always found myself being very headstrong and rushing into things and being, not very present in those situations, because I've come in from a high momentum situation before or whatever. And so just taking your time and going slow is so important. I just said there that I got the job before leaving uni. Big regret. Why did I do that? Why would I do that?
Yeah.
Yes, for the feeling of security and the control of, I guess, the situation post-grad, but if I had just taken a bit more time to slow it down, to think it through and prep it through in a bit more detail, I don't know where I'd be. I'd been, I wouldn't have suffered through a tougher time post-uni. So yeah, going slow, taking your time, and I think that's what I tell myself. I also tell myself to stop trying minoxidil, because I'm going to go bald anyway. So just let it happen. I don't know why I was fighting that for so long.
So just to kind of round it all off, what is a question that you would give to the next Surrey alumni that we're interviewing today?
Lovely. Post-release, I would ask them, looking back on the published novel or whatever now, what would you change? What would you do differently? And what learnings are you taking into your next work? I think there's a lot of learnings within there that's so, there's a lot that you learn. There's a lot about yourself that you learn. So yeah, I'd be keen to know that. Yeah.
Thank you you so much for joining me
Thank you
today.
for having
It's
me.
been an
Thank you.
absolute pleasure. And don't forget to do the liking, do the subscribing, do the following, follow Stag Radio, follow me. So thank you guys so much for watching. I've been your host, Sofia Varela, and I've been joined by
Thomas Sinkinson.
Loving it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.